I work in a nursing home, and something strange is happening to the residents. I drifted, nearly asleep. The room was warm and I had been up early. I was in a half dream in which Bert was walking around the grounds with me, pointing out a magpie perched on the fence. One for sorrow, he told me, and I laughed. It was just a superstition. But he turned to me with his face full of sadness and shook his head. The magpie squawked at that, sounding more like a crow than a magpie, a grating noise that dragged me from my doze, and on waking I realized it wasn't a bird crowing, it was Bert's breathing that had made such an awful noise. The death rat. I had heard it before, but the ugly sound never failed to distress me. It upset me even more so knowing one of my favorite residents was making it. I watched as his chest rose again, painfully inflating, and sank down with a drawn-out gargle. I waited. 30 seconds. A minute. 2 minutes. Bert was gone. I'd witnessed too many deaths in that place to be overly sentimental. In a few days his room would be bare of his personal effects, sanitized, and ready for a new resident, but I did pause for a moment to pay my own respects to a lovely man. It's odd being in a room with a dead body. It's like the exact opposite feeling reported on paranormal TV shows that one gets when one is being watched but nobody is there. You are there with a physical form, clearly visible, but the spirit has departed, and despite their presence the room is empty of all life but yours. I have to stress that, after everything that happened after, I did not feel Bert's presence at all. After I'd gathered my thoughts, I left the room and went to find one of the nurses. The morning shift had 4 carers and 2 trained nurses. The afternoon shift ran on a skeleton staff of 3 carers and 1 trained nurse. It was my bad luck that on that particular afternoon there was a male nurse called Terry manning the ship. Terry and I had never got on. He was a nurse, but taking night classes in business law, and I always got the feeling he never really liked the people he was paid to care for. He was cold, with little compassion to spare, and, worse than that, he was lazy. True to form, I found him still in the office. His feet were propped up on a chair, and he was sipping coffee whilst reading the local paper. He looked up when I came in, apparently surprised I was still there, but didn't move his feet or put down his reading matter. Bert has died, I told him. You'd better call his relatives. That made him move. He sighed, as though Bert's death was the most inconvenient thing ever, and put both his mug and his paper down. Okay, he said. I'll deal with it. I went to the staff room to change from my uniform into my civvies. I was sad, but one learns to deal with sadness when one is working with people who haven't long left to live. I was wondering who would take Bert's place in his room, and whether they would be nice or not, when Terry called to me from down the corridor. He was standing outside Bert's room with his hands on his hips, his face bearing a disgruntled expression. Were you trying to be funny, or are you just incompetent?